Happy Friday, everybody. We got a masterpiece of a show for you today. This is the Mona Lisa show with Extra Moan. We're going to be talking about some news stories. We're going to be talking about some news stories. Jay Leno was burned in a fire. What does that mean? We're going to talk about that and burn injuries. Also, there's another Brazilian butt lift death in the news. This one is pretty crazy. We're going to talk about that. Lastly, how to keep safe in the holidays. It's all coming up right now on Nip Talk.
Live from Lincoln Center in the heart of the Dallas Metroplex, this is Nip Talk, an honest and uncensored show about plastic surgery, health, beauty, and lifestyle, with your host, plastic surgeon Dr. Bruce Hermann, and your co-host, entrepreneur and social media influencer Sarah Bennett. Now it's time to discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly of the topics everyone is talking about. It's time for Nip Talk.
So I managed to derail the show before we even got started. It's a new record.
I was not expecting you to say moan.
Yeah, extra moan.
I was trying to catch you guys off guard.
All right.
All right, well, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. This is Nip Talk. I'm your host, plastic surgeon Dr. Bruce Hermann. With me, as always, is Sarah Bennett. And in the box is the man, the legend, Travis.
Hello. How are y'all?
Doing good. Doing pretty good.
Good.
So I have to say, it's the first Friday in like a month that we've come in and it hasn't been pouring rain.
Absolutely.
It's to be celebrated.
It is to be celebrated. You know what's crazy though is like the last 3 Fridays where the weather was just absolutely horrible. Actually, the drive-in, I mean, it sucked because it was raining.
It
but
wasn't
like,
that bad.
But it wasn't that bad.
Yeah,
and then
I thought there was
today,
gonna be so much
the
traffic.
weather was perfectly clear and it took me like over an hour to get here because there was 2 wrecks. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what that means. What does it mean?
I don't know.
It's crazy stuff. Yeah. Well, anyway, so we are coming up on Thanksgiving here pretty soon.
Yeah.
And we're going to do a little segment about Thanksgiving. So I guess maybe we'll save our Thanksgiving questions for the segment because I have one about Thanksgiving.
Is it about food?
No, it's not about food. It's going to be kind of a downer because, well, I mean, you know, it's about like, you know, staying safe at the holidays. Because there was, you know, I mean, COVID's still a thing and the flu.
Yes.
And so I saw some articles. You know, I like to talk about stuff on the show that you know is being talked about on like real news channels.
Some useful information.
Information.
Yeah.
And so
We're here for it.
So we'll talk about that because I have an interesting Thanksgiving tradition that I have to like bring up to you guys.
I'm excited.
Yeah. So I was going to tell you guys about a interesting case, and I thought about like actually because I made a segment. It's like a little video about an interesting case, and I thought about bringing it, and I was going to air it on the show, but I was afraid that because the show airs on Facebook, that Facebook would get mad at me and like we'd be in Facebook jail. Which,
oh no.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do though is I think I'm going to roll it on Monday on the YouTube channel.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, but I'm going to give you guys like a teaser. So, do you remember when I was talking about the lady who got kicked in the breast by the cow?
No.
Yeah, I remember that from last week.
Yeah, was it last week?
I think so.
Oh.
It might have been the week before.
I think
but
it was a few
Was
weeks.
that a reconstructive surgery situation?
It was just like, I think we were just talking about like what happened this week, and I was like, oh, there was a lady got kicked in the breast by a cow, and there was a guy who had like, you know, the flesh-eating bacteria like on his
flesh-eating.
Mm-hmm.
groin.
Yes.
And so, anyway,
Yeah.
so that the lady that got kicked in the breast by ended up having to have surgery. And so she was super nice, the nicest lady ever. And I was like, this is kind of interesting, you know, can I, share your story? And of course, we don't, you know, say your name or show her face or anything. But she was kind enough to let me do that. So I made a pretty cool video about it. I did bring one picture though, because there was one picture I thought that I could bring. And so that's
Holy
what
cow.
It looks like. Holy cow! So that's what it would look like if you were kicked in the breast and the side by a cow. That's pretty impressive, right? Like that's some
Gnarly.
serious bruising. So I did a whole like little video about like her story, which involved like looking at the CT scans and actually a video from surgery.
Kind of internal situations. I'm
Yeah,
sure.
and that's the part. Yeah, well, and that's the part I was afraid Facebook's, you know, I tell you, like, I mean, you know this being on social media, like navigating the restrictions on each platform.
I get flagged whenever I post pictures of my clothing for my store.
Really?
On Facebook. They're like, this is inappropriate. I'm like, it's
Oh my gosh.
a girl in a workout outfit.
I mean, it's so frustrating to be on social media because I mean, as you may or may not know, like I do a lot of social media for my plastic surgery, and it's like, you know, I just got on TikTok the other day, and I've almost gotten to the point where I don't get on TikTok anymore because, like, in the old days of TikTok, it was great. You could pretty much post what you wanted, and like, unless it was just obscene,
like vulgar, just like straight up.
Right? Yeah, if it's straight up
nasty.
like, you know, pornography or something, then
Yeah.
they'd probably pull it down. But like I got on the other day, and I literally haven't posted in like a month or two, and my account was flagged because they flagged videos that I posted like a year ago, and I'm like, you're just now like flagging these? I mean, like what's? And they were just like medical videos. They weren't anything crazy.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I feel like they should make a professional business account specifically for medical.
Right, it would be helpful because I have so many like really, really cool things that I could post, but I don't post them because I know as soon as I post it, they'll get pulled down.
Yeah, as long as there's like a warning, like, hey, some of this stuff can be uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah. Well, YouTube is a little bit better. You can actually air like surgeries on YouTube, and like it'll like say maybe this is for adults only, but like they won't put you in YouTube jail.
Nice.
Yeah. So anyway, so maybe so I think that's gonna air. That's gonna post Monday. I'm gonna put it on the Nip Talk channel, so it won't be like on my personal. It'll be on what you're watching now. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Facebook, you have to go to YouTube to see the cool videos. So, but it's worth seeing. So anyway.
I think so.
So anything interesting happened to you guys? Now, Travis, you had a big date last weekend. Anything? Was it exciting? I mean, you don't have to talk about it, but if you want to talk about it, is it good?
How do you still remember that? I forgot. It's been so much that
You
happened.
forgot about the date already?
Well, no, so this is what happened. The date didn't happen.
Oh, it didn't happen?
Yeah, it didn't happen.
Oh.
She canceled on me,
She canceled on you?
Yeah, she canceled.
Does she know what a big deal you are?
I'm not a big deal. That's why she canceled.
Oh, come on, man.
Nah.
I'm going to have a talk with her.
Nah.
We have to talk to this girl. Oh, I was anxious. I was been thinking all week. I was like, Travis is going to have to tell me about this date.
No, we rescheduled it though.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
So you got like a big when you do like a date, because I haven't dated in I've been married for like 22 years, so I haven't dated forever. So like when you do a date, like is like a big plan thing, or is it just like
it
low-key?
is like I basically plan like dinner and then what we'll do after, whether it be like drinks or dessert. It just depending on the person. But we were supposed to go to Audi Claire, and there was like live music playing that night too. There was a guy like in there with his guitar.
Oh,
but,
I love live music.
Yeah, it was dope. I still went.
Oh, you went without her? Okay.
Yeah, I still went.
Nice.
But
Very good.
yeah, it was a good little time.
All right, well, we'll have to get an update.
Absolutely.
All right, man.
I will keep you updated.
I think I caught him off guard with that.
You did a little bit.
All right, well, let's roll into our first segment. So this is basically our 411 where we learn about something, and we're going to be talking about burn wounds. Oh, all right, trivia time. This is an iconic music album cover. Can you name the band? I'm going to give you big brownie points if anyone can figure this out.
Can we get a lifeline?
It's from the 70s.
Oh, wow.
But it's like a huge band from the 70s.
A huge
The Beatles?
That's a good guess.
I thought the Beatles too.
No, it's Pink Floyd.
Dang.
Yeah, Pink Floyd.
I was gonna say Rolling Stones.
As soon as I was pulling up this topic, I was like, oh, I'm going to use that album cover.
My third grade teacher used to always play We Don't Need No Education.
Yeah,
all
The
the
Wall.
time.
Yeah, Pink Floyd. That's
And I was like, you're a teacher.
Yeah, but she's probably a cool teacher.
Counterproductive.
Yeah.
Very
So
counterproductive.
the reason we're talking about burn wounds, I don't know if you saw in the news, there was an article about it where Jay Leno actually received burn injuries. Yeah, which is pretty crazy.
That's wild.
Jay Leno, I mean, I loved him. He's a comedian. He was on The Tonight Show when I was growing up, and I was really sad to hear about it. He actually was burned while he was working on. He's like a huge car collector.
Yeah, he's a car guy.
He's got millions and millions of dollars of cars. So he works on him. He was underneath the car, and I guess there was a gas leak, and it ignited. So he got burns to his face, chest, and hands. And apparently they're fairly significant. So, of course, I want to look into this and see what happened. And fortunately, they're not life-threatening burns. You know how I know that? Because when I looked at the story, he went to a hospital, and then they sent him to a private burn care place. It's like the Grossman Burn Center, which I found very weird because I did 7 years of burn surgery when I was in my training, and burn surgery is usually done in the highest tier of hospital, a level 1 trauma center, place that has a burn unit. And I just found it really odd. So I looked this place up, and of course in California they have these bougie burn clinics, where it's they're making it almost like a concierge type burn.
Salon,
it's
spa.
crazy. I had no idea anything like this existed. I learned something. But the good news is because he went there, this is not a life, threatening thing.
Yeah, because he wasn't hospitalized for a long period of time.
I mean, this is it's kind of like a hospital, but it's you wouldn't go to this place if you were dying of your burns, because we're going to talk about burns and historically they're one of the most highest fatality rates of any injury.
Yeah.
Although that's gotten a lot better. But he's going to be okay. He's had one surgery to kind of clean up the burns, and most of them are second-degree burns. They think he might have a spot or two, a third, but they're waiting to see, which makes total sense. Everything they said, checks out.
Yeah.
So he's going to be okay. And probably, I doubt that he's going to, be disfigured or anything. Probably for a period of time, he's going to look unusual.
He's probably going to grow a beard if he can.
It's going to be singed off. I mean, he might have, that hair, he's got hair like mine where it kind of like goes up. He might have singed it off. But I just want to talk a little bit about burn injuries because they are kind of a black box in medicine. And, as a surgeon who did a lot of burn, care and burn surgery, I've learned that even doctors, have a little bit of issue dealing with burns because I'll get referrals for burns, which I look at, I'm like, oh, this is really simple, and like the doctors are not really sure what to do, or they can't really identify it. So I'm going to kind of go through this. And as I said, it was historically a very fatal problem. And I have one question for you guys today. It's one written question. I may have more questions. So the major cause of burn deaths, you got 4 choices. And Sarah, I'm going to make you go first. I think I made Charles go first last time. What's the major cause of burn deaths historically? Blood loss, injury, organ injury, so like, your heart gets burned up, sepsis, which is infection, or pulmonary failure. See, Travis?
Yeah, I say C.
You guys are smart. Yeah, it is. So historically, when people got burned, they died of sepsis, which is a overwhelming infection. And the reason for that is the skin is a enormous barrier to bacteria.
Yeah,
we have bacteria all over us. We're always in contact with bacteria, but we're not really getting sick because 1, we have an immune system, but 2, our skin blocks that. So when a burn injury occurs, what happens is the skin is violated. It's like the walls are broken down, right? And the bacteria are like coming in like the Vikings to get you or whatever. And also too, what happens is when the skin gets injured, then that's almost like fuel for bacteria. They can feed on that dead tissue. And so historically, people would die of infection. Now that's changed a lot as technology got better and we learned about things like antiseptics and topical medicines that would get put on. The infection rate for burns dropped.
Yeah.
But one of the ways that in the past that people would judge like how bad a burn was called the BAUX. It's BAUX, BAUX score. And it basically took the age of the patient and the percent of their body that was burned, and that would equal their mortality rate. So you're 33 years old. If you had a 20% burn, then in the older days, you'd have a 53% mortality rate. Now,
yikes.
It shows you how dangerous burns are, because think about somebody that's like 70 years old and they get a 30% burn. Well, then that mortality rate's 100. Now, what ended up happening is as we got smarter, that number started to be way too pessimistic. So nowadays they say that like if the score is 140, it's unsurvivable. So that means you at 30 years old could potentially get 100% burn and survive. Right. Which would be hard. I mean, but it conceivably could happen. Yeah. I mean, 100% burn is pretty bad.
Yeah, that would be pretty uncomfortable.
You're in trouble if you get 100% burn. So one of the ways that we judge burns is like how much you're burned, right? Yeah. And so there's actually a really cool way that was developed to determine how much of the body was burned, and it's called the rule of 9s, and there it is. And so your torso is 18%, so that's divisible by 9. So it's 18 on the front, 18 on the back. Each arm is 9, so 4.5 front, back. And then the legs are 9 in the front, 9 in the back, and then your head is 9. So they're all divisible by 9, and that's how you kind of remember. And so you can look at somebody that's burned and say, okay, well, half their torso in the front's burned, so that's 9%, and then their whole arm is burned, that's another 9%. So they have an 18% burn. Because otherwise, it's like, how do you know what percentage of the body's burned? So the rule of 9s is what us as burn surgeons or even ER doctors potentially, if they were sharp, could determine how big of a burn that you have, because it's important in how you treat it.
I like how it has 1% in the groin.
Yeah, it's right. So it's 11 sections that are 9%, and so that's 99%, and then the groin is 1%.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's how you determine the total body surface area. Also, when you're thinking about burns, you want to know the severity, right? Because, I mean, technically a sunburn is a type of burn. And you guys have probably heard, have you heard of degrees of burn?
Well, yeah.
First degree,
Third degree burn, yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I know it's a dumb question to ask, but like since I've been doing this so long, I sometimes forget. Like, okay, do people really know what degree of burn is? So the degree of burn is still used. I would say most burn surgeons don't use that, but a lot of doctors do. So like first degree burn would be like a sunburn. So it's like your skin is red.
Peeling.
It maybe like feels irritated, but maybe not overly painful. So that'd be first degree. Second degree is defined as when the skin actually blisters. And so I've actually had, when I was a kid, we were dumb and we didn't know things about sunscreen, and we'd go out in the sun all day, and I actually had sunburn so bad that I blistered.
I've had that before too.
So that's actually a second degree burn. At the point that your skin blisters, it's considered second degree because it's a higher level of injury. Also, second degree burns tend to be pretty painful, because the nerves are just really kind of irritated. And then third degree burns are the worst. That's when the whole skin layer is killed. And the way that you can tell a third degree burn, like the simplest way, is there's no sensation. Like if you have a second degree burn and I touch it, you're gonna be like, that really hurts. If you have a third degree burn and I touch it, then you're not gonna feel anything because the nerves are completely burned out. But most surgeons use a different type of measuring device, which is partial or thickness. So basically all that does is partial thickness is first and second degree, and full thickness is third degree. It's just a little bit simpler because to me it's like I don't even really care about a first degree burn. It's nothing to worry about. I just care about, okay, is it partially skin burned or fully burned?
Right.
So as I said, burn evaluation can be difficult, because a lot of times what happens when people get burned is like the skin will be all different colors, and there might be blistering, and you don't know what's underneath it. And so that's why burns, I think, really need to be seen by, somebody who really knows what they're doing. And also, too, you have to really assess the burn to know if it's one that's going to potentially be fatal, because there's not a whole lot of wiggle room between a burn, which is something someone will completely recover from, and one that can make you really sick.
Yeah.
And that brings up questions of like what should go to a burn unit, because like say you get burned and you go to the hospital, like if it's minor, they may just treat you right there. Yeah. But if it's really bad, they're going to send you to a burn unit where somebody I don't do it anymore, but like where I was. Yeah. Like working as a burn surgeon.
I feel like most people could probably relate to like getting burned like while cooking or something like that, because I burned myself when I was cooking like last week, and it's just now.
Did it blister?
Yeah, it blistered, okay. And now it's like finally.
So you had what's called a second degree burn. Yeah. Now fortunately it's really small. Another way also kind of going back to measuring, like because if say you get a burn, you're like, okay, what percentage of my body is this? Your palm is 1%.
Okay.
So like, if you burn like your whole palm, that's a 1% burn. So like if you burned your arm, you could be like, okay, that's 1%. I have a 2% burn.
So if you burn over 1%, you should probably go to the doctor, or?
Yeah, I would definitely go get checked out.
So like people are making fires a lot right now.
Right.
Because it's hot, cold outside, so.
So I'm going to kind of talk about that because like the right answer and what I'm going to tell anybody is if you're burned, you really should see your doctor.
Yeah.
Okay. But in reality, like you didn't go to the doctor, did you? Because you looked at this and you're like, oh, it's so minor, like it's gonna heal.
Yeah,
right?
I feel like I've burned myself way worse than this too.
Yeah,
I haven't gone to the doctor.
At the point that you blister, that technically is a second degree burn. Where you should be concerned is if you get like a small burn and like the outside's painful but the inside doesn't hurt. That could be worrisome because that center part could be a full thickness burn.
Right.
And when you get a full thickness burn, it's much less likely to heal. Mm-hmm. So I was going to talk just really briefly about how we treat burns. So for minor burns, so like your burn, what should you have done? Now, I'll ask you, what did you do when you burned yourself?
As soon as I did it, I put my hand under cold water.
Okay, so that's good. So that's the first thing you want to do is you want to stop the burn. Meaning if your skin got superheated, you want to cool it off. Like if you got burned by a chemical, because there are such things as like chemical burns.
Right.
You want to stop the burn by irrigating it with water. So like say you got like hot grease on you, or maybe like if you have a garden and you have like ammonia lye or something like that, and you get on your skin, that's a burn. Mm-hmm. You want to stop the burn. So you did the right thing. So what did you do next? Anything?
Not really. I think I might have put like antibiotic ointment on it.
Okay, once. So that would probably be my third step. What I would do in between stopping the burn is clean it with soap and water.
Okay,
now, you probably were doing that because you were putting it underwater.
And I was cooking. So
you're cooking. So, if you get a minor burn, you want to, 1, stop the burn. 2, you want to clean it really good with soap and water. And that's where some people like get a little scared because if you get a blister, you always hear don't unroof a blister. In reality, you do want to unroof that because that blister will get fluid in skin, which bacteria can use to, cause an infection. So you do want to clean that off. Now, of course, if you have a lot of blistering, you just need to go to the doctor. But if it's
honestly, I found that whenever I burn myself in when I'm cooking, if I put my hand or whatever I got, usually my hand, under water, like really cold water, it doesn't blister as bad. Like whenever I'm just
you're stopping the burn.
Like whenever I'm like, ow, that hurt, and then I ignore it.
Well, it's like when you touch something hot, like your skin suddenly soars to this high temperature. And if you allow that temperature to remain, it's going to cause a worse injury. Yeah. You put it under cool water and you bring your skin temperature down, that is helping
it never blisters.
You're stopping the burn. That's right. Yeah. Nice, Sarah's smart. So stop the burn, soap and water, and then you did the next thing, which is wound care. Yeah. And, antibiotic ointment's the right thing to do. So that's for minor burns. But for bigger burns, there are some extra steps. So say someone, back in the day when I was working at the Level 1 Trauma Center, came with a bad burn. First thing we do is assess it, and then I'm about to say something smart here, so get your notepads out. So you want to think about how much fluid that you're going to give a patient that's burned, because they do have big fluid losses. They start to third space fluid, they lose fluid out of the burn area. So there's a way that you can determine that, and it's called the Parkland formula. Do you know where Parkland comes from?
No.
Travis, Parkland, have you ever heard of it?
Sounds like a hospital.
Is it like the hospital?
It's the hospital, Parkland Hospital, literally 5 or 10 miles from here, the Parkland formula. So basically the Parkland formula is a way to determine how much fluid you give a burn victim. And it's the 4 times the percent burn times the total body surface area. So I'm going to use myself. So I weigh roughly 70 kilos. If I had a 50% burn, so you do 50 times 70 and then times 4, and I already did the math, that's 14,000, okay? So that means you want to give 14,000 milliliters of fluid over 24 hours. But you give half of that, so 7,000 in the first 8 hours, and you give the other half over the next 16 hours. And the reason that's important is one of the major causes of death in patients who are severely burned, before they die from infection, they die from cardiovascular collapse because they just run out of blood volume. It's not that they're bleeding out, it's all the volume, like the watery part of the blood comes out of it, and then there's just not enough volume to circulate things, and they just die really quickly.
I can see
so
that.
One of the first things you have to do is you have to resuscitate them, and that's where the Parkland formula comes in. And then after that, you want to make sure that they have pulmonary support. People who are burned really badly go into it's called systemic inflammatory response syndrome. Basically what happens is their organs start to shut down and the lungs start to go first. So a lot of times these patients have to be put on a ventilator. So a patient came in and was really burned, we would usually put them on a ventilator even if they were talking and breathing okay at the time, because eventually they are going to collapse from pulmonary.
Was it sudden? Or is it more like over time?
It's not sudden like this, but it happens pretty quickly in the time frame after a burn. Yeah. So within a few hours. So when someone comes in, you definitely. Sudden. And what's really sad, I'll tell you something that's really, really sad that I've had happen to me a few times is I had patients come in and they were really badly burned, and I knew that they were unsurvivable burns. That's happened to me many times. When you work at Level 1 Trauma Center, you see the worst of the worst. Right. And so we'd have patients that came in, and I knew they weren't going to make it. But they were awake and talking, and we're like, okay, we got to put you on this breathing machine. And basically when you do that, that's it for them. Because once you put them on a breathing machine, then you have to sedate them, and it's basically that's the end of their life.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really sad. That happened a few times where you just knew that this was probably going to be the end for them.
It's really sad.
Yeah. And then lastly, once for patients who are going to survive, you resuscitate them, you get pulmonary support, and then you want to debride the burn. So anything that's full thickness, so the 3rd degree or full thickness, you want to get that tissue off because it's only going to make the patient sicker.
Yes.
So we take them to surgery, we debride them, and then the last segment when we do our skin grafts. So after all the wounds are debrided, after the patient's stabilized, then a few days later we would go back and we would skin graft them to get them completely healed up. So, and that's a whole another topic
yeah.
that we can talk about. Yeah, we could do a whole segment on skin grafting. Maybe we'll do one.
Okay.
We could do skin grafts. Actually, the skin grafts are pretty interesting. So, but anyway, that's burns. Kind of in a nutshell. You could talk for hours about burn injuries, but that kind of is the basics. Take home, if you get burned, unless it's completely nothing, you should go to your doctor because burns, when they're larger, can make you very sick, and people die from burns. So just be careful.
Yes.
Absolutely.
All right.
Did you talk about already how we do a skin graft?
I haven't. We just glossed over it, but yeah, we should do a segment about it.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll do one. Maybe next week.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you like that segment, please leave us a comment. Leave us your questions about burns. Let us know what you think. We'd love to hear from you. So, all right, moving on. Now, I got a kind of a disaster story here. And it's sad because it involves a death.
No.
But this story, this is this story. It's a disaster running into a dumpster fire. Because as I dug into this, it just went from bad to worse.
Oh, gosh.
So this is actually about a patient. This actually happened a year ago. When I saw it, I thought it just happened because it happened in October. It was October 2021. But now, I guess, like, what brought it into the news was the fact that they're going after this doctor for what happened. And so this involves a Brazilian butt lift, which you guys know how I feel about BBLs. Like, I'm against them. And here's another example of someone dying after having a BBL. So this was a patient out in Florida that went to a center called Best You Now Plastic Surgery. And so I when I looked them up, I was immediately turned off. The Disneyland of cosmetic surgery.
Oh, wow.
I mean, who would write that? Like,
right.
I just is so, I don't know. It's just unprofessional. So this business is, in my opinion, a business that's a problem in plastic surgery, because I call these plastic surgery patient mills. Like, you've heard of puppy mill, where it's just like, high volume.
Yeah.
To me, this is a plastic surgery patient mill. I think I may be the only person that's ever said that. I may have coined a term. This video may go down as like, that's where the plastic surgery patient mill came from. But what they do is, this is a business. So it's not like me. So I'm a doctor. I have my own office. And even if I had partners, it would be Dr. Hermann and Dr. So-and-so's plastic surgery. But this is a corporation that opens up a facility that does a lot of high marketing and does really cut rate plastic surgery. And what they do is they do contract plastic surgeons so say I don't have a busy practice, but I want to just do something, I can go and join this facility and they pay me like 25 cents on the dollar, which, it's not insignificant money, but not near as much as you would make if you had your own practice. But they pay these doctors like low amounts. A lot of times they do these things under local anesthesia so that they don't have to pay an anesthesiologist, and that allows them to basically do very, very cheap prices, which attracts people. And then they do a lot of marketing. It's like, oh, you can get your Brazilian butt lift for $3,000, which would be very cheap compared to like if I was doing that, which I don't even do those. And so it attracts people. And I have just a huge amount of problems with this. I mean, some of the problems, like, when you go to their website, it doesn't even have any information about their doctors. Like, zero information. Like, when you go to like a legit plastic surgeon's website, it talks about their credentials. Who are they? Where did they go to school? What is their training? What is their board certification?
Sounds like some back alley stuff.
I really have a huge problem with these places. And they are a really big problem in Florida. There's a lot of them.
For sure.
And it just, that was there's a huge warning bell. Like, when you go to their website and you can't even like look up the doctor. There's not even a name of a doctor. It's crazy. Also, like, they encourage medical tourism. Like, when you go to their form, it's like, is it possible for you to come in for a pre-op consult? But like, it doesn't like have any like kind of negative if you don't. Like, you literally could say, I want to get a Brazilian butt lift. Like, you could go on their website, say, my name's Sarah, I live in Texas, I want to get a Brazilian butt lift. And they're like, okay, we'll schedule it out. And then you arrive and like literally you go to surgery and have it. And I have a big problem with that because I think a lot of the mistakes that happen in plastic surgery are due to poor preoperative planning.
Yeah.
And this is just zero preoperative planning. I mean, they probably have something where like you go in and you talk to the doctor the day of, but like, I mean, at that point you're kind of committed. And so it doesn't give you that opportunity to make a plan in advance, which I don't like. And then also a lot of these places, like, the doctor doesn't see the patient post-op. It's like, a nurse or something that sees them post-op. So I have a huge problem with these places that pop up. And so this one specifically, so that's the first problem, that it's at one of these patient mill plastic surgery places. But the complaint is that this patient died and they were giving the patient anesthesia, but it wasn't an anesthesiologist giving the anesthesia, it was an OBGYN. Can you believe that?
Wow.
I mean, it's crazy. And so I looked it up, and they were doing, it wasn't like a general anesthesia where they put a breathing tube in and put them on a breathing machine, but it was like a level down from that, which means that they were probably getting like IV sedation. I mean, it's like a way to save money. Like they don't want to pay for an anesthesiologist, so they just get whatever doctor to come in and do the anesthesia. And so that's why the state is cracking down on this place specifically. I mean, not even for the reasons that I mentioned, which honestly, I think in the name of patient safety that places like this should be more regulated. I mean, you know, when you can't even like look up the doctors or what their credentials are, it's worrisome. And they're doing the surgeries in the facility, which is a problem. You know, if you go, so say you come into my office and I'm gonna take you to surgery, I take you to a accredited surgery center, okay? That means that there's a high level of credentialing that goes into like the doctors. Are they properly board certified and that kind of thing? When you do surgeries in an office, it's less regulated. So yeah, the patient had liposuction, had a Brazilian butt lift, had a breast augmentation.
She died in surgery?
No. So I try to dig up, like to try and figure out what happened. Like the details of this are super sparse. At first I thought that the OBGYN was the one that did the surgery. I thought that's what happened, like, but I think it didn't. It doesn't really say, because in the whole article it says nothing about the surgeon. It's only talking about the patient died, and it's talking about the OBGYN. And I thought that maybe the OBGYN was the one doing the surgery. I mean, because that happens. I mean, there's a big problem with fake plastic surgeons out there. And I call a fake plastic surgeon as somebody who's doing a plastic surgery procedure that's not properly trained. Yeah. There literally are OBGYNs in Dallas Metroplex doing cosmetic surgery.
How do you know, like, what's
like
board certified? And
Yeah, and that's where it gets confusing. And I mean, honestly, we'll have to do a segment on that because like it's a lot of, it's even confusing for doctors. Yeah. So if it's confusing for doctors, like the average person like yourself or anyone looking for plastic surgery can easily, you know, get led astray. Yeah. So we'll do a segment on that. Okay. I think we got our segments for the next show. What was the other one we were doing? Skin grafts.
Yeah, skin
grafts and fake plastic surgeons. We got our next show. Nice. Anyway, so I think that there's some take-home points for this. And you know, anytime that there's a death, I mean, we don't want, you know, to make light of it. And the reason that we talk about it is we want this to not happen to other people. Yeah. And so what can we learn from this to prevent bad outcomes in plastic surgery? Because as a plastic surgeon, I feel obligated to police my specialty. Like, I don't want people out there giving me a bad name. So in this instance, I mean, my number one problem is that this is a patient mill for plastic surgery. Right. I hate these type of businesses. I mean, to be fair, I've had friends who worked for them, like right when they get out of training, because they just didn't have business. They didn't have their own practice that was busy, and they needed to survive.
Yeah,
they
did it. Work. Mm-hmm.
Huh?
They just needed to work.
They just needed to work, but I just feel like there's such potential for problems when you do that for the reasons that I specified. So I'm 100% against them, and you know, people may get mad at me or whatever, but like at the end of the day, like, I'm about patient safety. I don't want people to have, you know, injuries or deaths from plastic surgery, and here's an example of how that happened. Yeah. Also, I mean, you do need to do your own research. I mean, letting an OBGYN do anesthesia is just, in my opinion, criminal. I think that, you know, there's a failure of the facility to let that happen. There's a failure of the surgeon, if there was one and it wasn't the OBGYN doing it. Like if I went into surgery and it was like not an anesthesiologist doing anesthesia, I would stop the procedure. I'd be like, okay, I don't feel safe about this. The nurses involved should do that. At every facility I work at, there's signs that say, if you're concerned, say something, which it's encouraging people that aren't necessarily the doctor or surgeon to speak up when they see something that's unsafe. And obviously that didn't happen here. And lastly, I think you should think hard before doing a Brazilian butt lift. I mean, since we don't have any details of what happened, we don't know if, you know, was it the Brazilian butt lift that potentially caused the issue that caused them to die? Was it because that the anesthesia was done wrong? We don't know any details. We'll probably have to circle back on this as more details become available. Yeah, I'd like to know. Yeah. I want to know what happened. I mean,
we need to know.
We need to know because you want to know how to fix it. Yeah. Someone died. How do we fix this problem?
For real. Yeah.
Well, let us know what you think about these things. I personally think that these type of businesses are kind of risky. If you've had your experience, let us know. Was it good? Was it bad? I'd like to hear. So leave us a comment. Those to like and subscribe, and we want to hear from you. All right, moving on. So this one, I don't know. This is kind of a downer topic. It's not.
We keep getting more down and down.
This show.
Good thing I had 2 Red Bulls today. Gosh.
I know. Well, and I say that this is a downer. So it's a Thanksgiving article or episode or segment.
Okay.
But I was like, okay, well, what can we talk about at Thanksgiving, right? I guess you could talk about, you know, how to stay safe because. Okay. I know the pandemic, it's kind of like an afterthought, and no one wants to talk about flu season, but when you're in the holidays, it is a potential time for you to get sick. And so there's been a couple articles pop up. This one was on CNN talking about how to reduce the risk of getting sick this Thanksgiving season. These were a lot more popular in years past, when the COVID pandemic was in full swing. But I think that you could still talk about it today because COVID still is happening. And also the flu season is bad this year. We had a whole episode about how the flu season was going to be bad. That's proving to be true.
Yes.
And so how do you keep people safe? But before we get into it, do you guys have any cool Thanksgiving traditions? I have one I want to talk about, but do you guys have anything interesting?
Well, recently, my family just plays a drinking card game.
Drinking card game?
Yeah, all of the younger family members.
Which card game is it?
I bought it.
Name it.
I bought my sister this card game off Amazon 3 Christmases ago.
Okay.
And so now every time we go to her house for Thanksgiving, I'm like, the card game.
Wow. So we have something very similar.
Yeah.
It's very similar. Travis, you got anything?
Our family tradition on Thanksgiving, we argue.
We do that too. I think that's every family.
We have inappropriate conversations.
Absolutely.
We don't want to.
No,
what's your religion?
Names.
Who'd you vote for?
We pulled names for Christmas.
You pull names for Christmas?
That'll give you more. You should have more than enough time to get a gift between Christmas and
That's
Thanksgiving.
a good idea.
That is good.
So we pulled names for Christmas gifts.
So we have 2 traditions. One is we've done forever and one's kind of new. So the first one is we do something called Thanksgiving bingo. So it's kind of like one of those things where you bring a gift that's less than $20. And so everybody brings one and you throw them in this big pile. And then we play bingo. And if you get a bingo, you get to pick a gift.
Oh, wow.
But the next person can steal your gift.
So it's like Secret Santa?
I guess, yeah. Or White Elephant.
White Elephant. Yeah, that's what it's called. White Elephant.
So we do White Elephant gifts, but it's
dope.
bingo that lets you get the chance to pick.
So do y'all wrap the gifts?
Oh yeah.
Y'all wrap,
so it's a big pile. You don't know what you're getting.
Exactly.
You might open it up.
Do you wrap it in Thanksgiving paper? What do you wrap it in?
We wrap it in turkey wrapping? No. No, we just wrap it in regular
turkey
wrapping.
paper.
Turkey paper. We wrap
Aluminum
it in mashed
foil.
potatoes. Yeah, aluminum foil. No, we just wrap it in regular wrapping paper. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So, but that's a lot of fun. And then recently, so talking about your card game, we do something called Left, Right, Center, which is a dice game where you put dollars. So it's basically we're gambling on Thanksgiving. So you put in dollars with the dice, and the last person to have $1 wins the pot. My kids love it. My kids are like horrible gamblers. They just love Left, Right, Center. I mean, the whole family loves it. It's fun. And you're only paying $5, so it's not like you're losing. But it is fun. So that's kind of our traditions. But
That's fun.
all right, I'm gonna get us back on topic. So how to stay safe, right? So there's a few things that you can do. The first thing that's the obvious is be vaccinated. Now, one thing about vaccination, you don't want to get your vaccination, the day before Thanksgiving because that's not going to really help you. Ideally, you want to get it 2 weeks ahead of time. At the minimum would be a week. Also,
go get it now.
You can get it now. That'd be helpful. Yeah, because we're a week away. So
vaccine.
COVID vaccine, flu vaccine, that helps. And so why do we want to do this? Well, one, it's our family members. Not that we should be any different with strangers, right? But it is our family members. Definitely don't want to get our family members sick. And 2, you're sometimes around people who are elderly. You got Mima and Papa and
babies.
Yeah, babies, right? And so you're around the edge of the spectrum of age, older people and really young people, and those people are more susceptible to things like the flu or RSV, which is young kids, or COVID or whatever. Mm-hmm. So we do want to protect ourselves. So vaccinations are important. That's one thing. The other ways is increasing ventilation. These are airborne diseases. So I know it's crazy, but you could do something like have Thanksgiving outside, which you could maybe do in Texas. Just depends on what weekend it is. I think that's kind of almost unrealistic to do that, but it would be very effective, because if you're in an enclosed environment with a lot of people, it's much more likely that you're going to, pick up a bug than if you're outside and spread out. So ventilation, even having ventilation in the room is important, or HEPA filters. Open windows, yeah, that's good. HEPA filters are important.
I have one of those.
Other things that you can do would be simple hand washing. Mm-hmm. That's kind of, I almost feel like that's become a thing after the COVID pandemic. As a doctor, I did it anyway, but I do it doubly now because I'm just it's in my brain. I'm hardwired to, I don't want to get COVID, so I'm So I'm like washing my hands. Yeah, right.
Hand sanitizer everywhere.
I know, right? So washing your hands and hand sanitizer is important. I mean, I hate to say it, but wearing masks can help, especially like, say, for example, like you have like an elderly relative that, that's on chemo or something, and they're very susceptible to disease. I mean, they should wear a mask. You might consider wearing a mask. I mean, just, there are still bugs out there that people can catch. The other thing is you could have like a mini quarantine, which means, okay, I'm gonna be with like 30 of my family in a week, so I probably shouldn't go to the Slipknot pit and mosh 3 days before that, because I think that's where I got COVID actually, when I was in Slipknot. Remember when I got COVID?
Yes.
I think I got it at Slipknot. So a mini quarantine, like if you're gonna be with a bunch of family, maybe don't, go be around a large crowd in the week prior. And then lastly is you could do COVID testing. Like you could actually test yourself the day before to make sure that
I have like 2 packages
of COVID
like
tests.
one package comes with 2 tests in it. Yeah.
I mean, it would be a very responsible thing to do, that before you go to Thanksgiving dinner, is to test yourself, because you'll test positive before you potentially have your symptoms.
Nice.
So you could prevent someone from getting disease. And of course, if you're sick, maybe don't go to Thanksgiving. I know it sucks, but I mean, you don't want to get your family sick.
Absolutely.
How bad would you feel if you gave Mima COVID and she died from it?
Oh my God, that'd be so bad.
That would be a huge. This whole episode has been a downer.
That'd be so bad. But it's
Dr. Debbie Downer.
It's been a downer, but it's been real talk too at the same time.
Yeah, right.
Like,
I mean, these are things that people need.
Yeah,
to
it's
know,
hot topics,
right?
hot issues. Yeah, facts.
Practical things.
Because it's funny.
things.
I have a friend of mine that's getting a BBL next month.
Oh no.
Yeah, exactly. And when we were talking about it, they worked with me at my radio station job. When we were talking about it, our conversation came into mind like that is a dangerous procedure. You know what I mean?
Well,
Are you like I'll pray for you?
I don't want to scare them, so no.
I'll be thinking about you,
I would say, honestly, like being totally real, I would say, hey, I work with a plastic surgeon. He like won't do the procedures because he thinks they're a little bit dangerous.
Right.
And then also, I would also ask, do you know for a fact that the person that's doing it is a trained plastic surgeon?
Yeah.
I exposed some internal medicine doctor in Dallas that was doing BBLs in their office under local. And like he tried to sue me, or he threatened to sue me,
right?
Because I like said that this guy shouldn't be doing it, and I was like, yeah, bring it on. I'd love to like take this to the media, but just I would tell your friend. I mean, there's nothing wrong with like giving people a warning.
What plastic surgery can you do under local anesthesia?
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that.
Okay.
I think all of the information that we talk about is very vital. So
it is.
As downer as it may seem,
it was a downer, but it's necessary.
It's necessary.
All right. Well, that's our show for today. Instead of doing questions again, I want to reach out to the audience and say, what do you guys want us to talk about? Like, is there any topics out there that you've seen in the news that could be plastic surgery, health, beauty related? Leave us a comment. We want to hear from you. If we do your topic, we'll give you a shout out. So love to hear from you. All right. We'll see you next week on Nip Talk.